Welcome back to another legal breaking reporting and video analysis update. We have not one, but two legal breaking reporting video analysis updates. One is Letitia James has unfortunately, after she had her vindictive mortgage fraud charges, been hit with a frivolous, vindictive bar complaint by a conservative watchdog federal agency group. Let's get into this new reporting by Fox News, and then we're going to get to another reporting of another GOP senator not seeking re-election, which is dealing another blow to Mike Johnson and the Republican caucus in the Republican House. Our first reporting, ladies and gentlemen, is titled Watchdog Group Hits Letitia James with Bar Complaint After Federal Judge Tosses Case. Ladies and gentlemen, that article reads, a conservative-aligned watchdog group has filed a bar complaint accusing New York Attorney General Letitia James of professional misconduct tied to her Norfolk home in Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, my editorial edition. Mortgage allegations that were also at the center of her recently dismissed federal charges. The Center to Advance Security in America CASA filed the complaint with the state's attorney grievance committee accusing James of engaging in illegal and dishonest conduct in connection with the mortgage with the mortgage she took out on the property, according to the New York Post. According to the complaint and related public statements, the group alleges James' actions raise concerns under the state's rules of professional conduct, the ethical standards that govern lawyers in New York. Quote, fraud, misrepresentation, honesty and trustworthiness are all factors that the rules of professional conduct expressly consider when weighing whether to discipline an attorney. Unquote. Curtis Schwab, SCHUBE, ladies and gentlemen, the group's director of research and public policy, wrote in a 4-page complaint, according to the outlet. Quote, the committee therefore should immediately investigate the allegations against James, and if by proponents of the evidence the allegations are substantiated, she should be disciplined accordingly. Unquote. A federal judge threw out the indictments against James and former FBI Director James Comey on Monday, finding they were illegitimately brought because they had been brought by an unqualified U.S. attorney. Judge Cameron Curry dismissed the bank fraud charges against James and the false statements charges against Comey without prejudice, meaning the charges could be brought again. Just, ladies and gentlemen, not brought by somebody like Lindsay Halligan, who was illegally and unlawfully appointed. Ladies and gentlemen, the article reporting continues. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Fox News' Martha McCallum that the Department of Justice plans to appeal. Which, ladies and gentlemen, there's a really low chance that they will succeed in reviving the indictment. Let's get into the next portion of the article. Quote, we believe the attorney in this case, Lindsay Halligan, is not only extremely qualified for this position, which she's not, ladies and gentlemen. She wasn't even properly appointed. But she was, in fact, legally appointed. Unquote, Leavitt said, which she was not legally appointed, Leavitt, so I would shut your mouth. That's all you know how to do is run your fat mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, the article continues. Quote, and I know the Department of Justice will be appealing this in very short order. Unquote. Which, ladies and gentlemen, again, there is a very low chance that they will succeed. And there's a very high chance that they will lose the appeal. Curry, a Clinton appointee based in South Carolina, was brought in from out of state to preside over proceedings about the question of Halligan's authority because it presented a conflict for the Virginia judges Comey and James's ladies and gentlemen, Comey's and James. Challenges to Halligan's appointment were consolidated because of their similarity. Halligan acted alone in presenting charges to the grand juries shortly after Trump ousted the prior interim U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert and urged Attorney General Pam Bondi to replace him with Halligan, a former White House aide and insurance lawyer, who, ladies and gentlemen, has no prosecutorial experience whatsoever. Bondi complied, but Curry found the interim U.S. Attorney term had already expired under Siebert, and that the Virginia judges were now responsible for appointing a temporary U.S. attorney to serve until Trump could get one confirmed in the Senate. James, a second-term Democrat, was accused of claiming the property as her principal residence in 2023, despite being a public office holder in New York at that same time. She has denied wrongdoing. She previously said she made an error while filling out a form related to the home purchase, but fixed it. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, does not mean in the court of law that you're essentially guilty. In this case, Letitia James. It doesn't mean that she's is necessarily guilty, which she was found to be not guilty. Hence, there's more than likely that this indictment won't be brought again, unless it's by a attorney that is not Lindsay Halligan. Ladies and gentlemen, the reporting continues. Fox News Digital reached out to both the the New York Attorney General's office and CASA, but did not immediately receive a response. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, we have another reporting by Axios. The article is titled, "Another House Republican is calling it quits from Congress." Ladies and gentlemen, the article reads, Representative Troy Nehls, Republican from Texas, one of President Trump's most steadfast allies, said Saturday he will retire from Congress rather than seek re-election in 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, why it matters. It matters because Nichols joins a rapidly growing group of House members in both parties who have decided to call it quits, either to run for higher office or simply leave politics entirely. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, a longtime Trump ally who recently split with the president, made headlines last week by announcing her plans to resign in January. Representative Don Bacon, Republican from Nebraska, a Trump critic, told Axios he nearly resigned over the Trump administration's 28-point peace plan for the Russia-Ukraine war. Ladies and gentlemen, what they're saying that, quote, I have made the decision after conversations with my beautiful bride and my girls over Thanksgiving holiday. Over the Thanksgiving holiday. To focus on my family and return home after this Congress. Unquote. That is what Nichols said. In a statement, before making this decision, Representative Nichols, ladies and gentlemen, called President Trump personally to let him know of his plans, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump has always been a strong ally for our district and a true friend, and I wanted him to hear it from me first. Nichols was first elected in 2020. Within hours of Troy Nehls' announcement, his identical twin brother, Trevor Nehls, said he plans to run for the seat. I know this district, and this district knows me. I will work every day to earn your trust and carry on the tradition of America First leadership that are ousting Congressmen, outgoing Congressman Troy Nehls set. Unquote. Trevor Nehls wrote in a post on Facebook. Troy Nehls endorsed his brother in a post on Facebook. Go deeper, ladies and gentlemen. The weekend the worst paying job in America. Ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna do it for this legal breaking reporting and video analysis update. If you did enjoy this legal breaking reporting and video analysis update, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and enjoy for more legal breaking news that you need to know about. More to come soon.